Dear audience, thank you so much for joining the 18th edition of the Warsaw Jewish Film Festival. My name is Lihi Nagler. I am the head of the film selection committee of the festival. Here in our festival, we see Yiddish-related films as an integral part of the program since many years. And for the current edition of our festival, we chose two documentaries. And today we will talk about the German film, The Young Kadyas. And I am very happy and honored to have three guests with us. The first guest is Yvonne Andrä. She is the director of the film. The second guest is Wolfgang Andrä. And Wolfgang, you are the producer and the editor of the film. And the third guest is Dr. Alan Bern. And Alan, you are the executive director of the project that is documented in the film, as well as the director of Yiddish Summer Weimar. And you are the composer of the poems sung in the film by the girls.
Of the music, but
of the music.
Yes.
The composer of the music, yes.
Yes.
So just to introduce the film in few words before we start to talk about that with you, The Young Kadyas is a very unique film. It documents a project that aimed to bring together two female actors from Germany. The name of the chore is Shola Kantrum Weimar. Am I right? Okay. And the chore from Israel that is called Voices of Peace. That this is a different project that can be discussed longly in a different context. Not only do those girls have to cope with the extreme differences in their backgrounds, but they are expected to perform together in Germany in Yiddish. And they were supposed, and they did it, to sing songs to the lyrics of the Yiddish poet Katya Moldovsky. The film itself is divided to chapters, and I had a feeling that each chapter reveals another complex layer of clashing mentalities, politics, coping with the past, generational gaps, and the coming of age of those girls in three different cultures. And Alan, I would like to open with you by asking you, how did you come up with the idea to have a project like that?
Well, in the process of running Yiddish Summer Weimar over the years, a number of very creative colleagues have come to us, including Yvonne and Wolfgang, who have been associated with Yiddish Summer in many ways for many years. And there's like a constant fermentation of ideas going on. And at a certain point, a woman named Diana Matut, who is an expert in the poetry of Katya Molodowsky, said, Alan, how would you like to compose something, you know, with those poems? And I said, oh, I love that idea. And the idea of Yiddish Summer Weimar is to be a kind of an empowerment center for everyone. So the idea would be not, oh, let's find a professional choir to sing them, but what could be the most interesting, challenging way to bring those songs into existence so that people learn not only about the music, but they learn as much as possible about themselves. And this idea arose out of that.
Thank you, Yvonne. I wanted you to say a few words, maybe. How did you, okay, now I understand that you are part of the Yiddish Summer in Weimar, but how did you come up to make a film about the project? And another question for you, did you have to struggle with some kind of identification questions when it comes to your own background? You are a German and yes.
Okay, for the first question, I heard from the project, and it was the second film for us when we filmed something about the Yiddish Summer Weimar. And the first one was a really complicated, long project, and it took 4 years, sorry. And it was our first feature documentary. Mm-hmm. And when they told me about this project, I thought, oh, this will be not so crazy stuff. It will be children will sing and in a positive way, naive. and beautiful and childlike. So, and because they told us there are children are coming to this project. Okay, then we had the first meeting with the girls. Yeah, they went up to 21. So the whole idea crushed in one moment. And we have to struggle with new themes, new thinking of this project. And but we were in, and the most complicated thing was how can we deal with all these things between Israel and Germany and all this history which is not behind us, with influences us the whole world until today, and how can we overcome with this? So this was a really complicated situation for us as German filmmakers, so Wolfgang and me. So so this was one of the reasons that we asked Eyal that he filmed in Israel, and I was the director in Germany, and then Wolfgang and me, we make the editing process together. So he's also a director in the editing process, and this is something what we have to deal with all the time. I believe we as Germans, with this fault and with all this what was happened in the last years, and we have the Verantwortung, responsibility until today. So, and this is something why we made this film, and why we put all these things also in the film, and we made chapter
Right.
to concentrate on different kind of processes in this project, and also this was the way to conclude all the songs into the movie. Every song has a meaning, has some words, and the words become reality in this project on another level. So I hope
in the context of the production and the things that you said, I would like to ask Wolfgang. It is clear that this production was not so simple. Just reminding the fact that part of the shooting, as you said, Yvonne, took place in Israel, part of them in Germany, many participants, a big production. And there is one thing that struck me and was very clear to me, that the meeting in Israel between the girls was very optimistic and quite calm. And when they travel together to Germany and they have to spend, I think, 20 days in Weimar, the atmosphere changes completely. Can you tell us a little bit about this shift and how you succeeded to put it in the film?
The process. I mean, when you travel with children in that age, young girls, and they all come together, it's very hard time. And I think Shireen, the person who traveled with her, and the only really adult who has had time to deal with the girls. So she was a little bit alone, and that was a very hard time for her. But I was really not in the process of the shooting involved. So because in the same time I made my first feature film as a director. So I really was in the time before and after the shooting process, because it's better to talk about this situation for you.
Yvonne? Because it is clear also from the editing that there were very clear decisions about describing the atmosphere and of course the historical context, and the minute that those girls land in Germany, they hear stories about the Holocaust and the past and who did what and who was on which side, and this becomes a very, very heavy material suddenly after the beach in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, That's right, but maybe we were not so deep in the group system. So when we were longer and longer there, we had a different relationship to the girls. So and it moved forward in a positive way. We have more trust in each other on each other. On the other side, of course, if you are a group, there will come some problems, and there are young girls. They are puberty, Alan, puberty.
In the puberty, in puberty.
Yeah, they are in this heavy youth time when you have to find your own possibility and your own personality, your own identity. So, and we found this must have been a place, not just talk about the religion and the politics and the system and the project. There are also young girls. They love to sing. They want to go shopping. They want to be stars, maybe music stars. So, and we found this is also a very important thing in this project. We cannot talk only about the adult view. We need to see their view on the world. And maybe it's sometimes naive, or it's maybe sometimes a little bit Ellen, was heißt nervend?
Irritating a little bit.
Irritating, yeah, okay, maybe a little bit irritating, but this has a place, and we were absolutely convinced about that this needs to be shown in the film.
Yes, this is, I just wanted to say something. I am an Israeli who lives in Berlin. So I am between those two cultures. And for me, also as a mother of children, it was very interesting to see how seriously, the minute those girls from Israel arrived to Weimar, this heaviness of the mentality, it is shocking for them. And also the expectations from them to behave according to the mentality. I thought that this is, of course, a side of all the other subject of the film. I thought that this is a very interesting point. Yes, Ellen, you wanted to say something.
I wanted to say, I think it's important to mention that the majority of the young women from Israel are Arabic Jews. And they have come to terms with their lives in Israel in a way that is amazing. When you see how they are in Israel, they're so full of life and glamorous and beautiful and, you know, smiling and just full of life. And then they come to Weimar, and Weimar is a place that has, I don't know how many dozens of layers of history. You know, you step into that and every bit of the city of Weimar is yelling history at you. Not only Buchenwald, but also the Weimar classic history. There isn't a centimeter of Weimar that isn't full of history. And I think that was unexpected to them, you know, how strong that would be. Also, they came with a kind of a mission from Israel, an official mission to try to represent Israel in some way to the Germans, and they had a lot of ambivalence about exactly what that meant. And then it just worked out this way that they were all staying together. In Israel, the German girls were staying in the families of the Israelis, but the Israelis didn't want their girls to stay in German families. They insisted they should all stay together in one house. And the only house we could find for them was quite a few kilometers outside of Weimar. So they were, you know, they were staying in this house and had this feeling like, oh, the best shopping is 3 or 4 kilometers away in the center, and we're stuck out here. And I think that they felt frustrated by, and one also has to say it's a very interesting irony, and one that I was aware of from the beginning, that the German girls could understand 80 to 90% of the Yiddish and didn't need to be able to read the texts in Hebrew alphabet. The girls from Israel could read the texts in the Hebrew alphabet, but they couldn't understand a word of the Yiddish. So for them, those long rehearsals involved 2, 3, 4 hours of singing sounds that they had to keep reminding themselves, what does this mean? What am I singing about over and over again? So it was very challenging for them, I think.
I have another question for you, Alan, because you said in the beginning that the film is about empowerment. And just to mention that Kadia Moldovsky, she, as far as I know, she did not come with Yiddish from home. She studied Yiddish as a conscious decision, and then she wrote poems in Yiddish. And here you made a choice to focus on young girls.
Yes.
And this is, of course, a film also about the empowerment of women. And I want you to say maybe a few words about the decision to focus on those girls.
Well, you know, one thing that I'm always interested in is looking underneath the surface of the history that we have received. And so, for example, Kadia Moldovsky spent some time in Israel, and children in Israel learn her songs translated into Hebrew. But we're not aware that she also was a poet in Yiddish. So what I'm very interested in general is a project where, in order to succeed in this project, people have to find a way to cooperate and come together and learn about the other in a way that they didn't expect before. That both sides of this need each other in order to be able to make this project happen. And Kadia Moldovsky also wrote poems that the nature of the poems themselves are so deeply respectful of young people. She herself was deeply respectful of young people. And actually, every one of the poems works for adults as much as it does for children, which is why the music that I composed is not children's music. It's meant to be music which will touch adults just as much as it will touch young people, although it should be easy to sing for young people. So there's an entire kind of emotional, historical complex around this that we wanted to put out there and let these two groups make discoveries through it. Mm-hmm. Also, the subject of Yiddish Summer Weimar at that time, every year Yiddish Summer Weimar has a different subject. And for 2 years, we had done something called The Other Israel, because I had met Yair Dalal, the great, great musician and leader of the Voices of Peace Choir. I had met him in Prague a few years earlier. He's exactly my age. And we started talking about our experiences. And we realized that even though I grew up in the United States in an Ashkenazic environment, and he grew up in Israel in an Iraqi Sephardi environment, we had amazing parallel experiences. And I thought, we have to look into these connections that seem to be transculturally valid. So in the context of The Other Israel, this was an investigation of otherness. Mm-hmm. And what better way to look into that in a way which is with your whole heart and soul and being than to do this with young women from Germany and young women from Israel. We thought it was, you know, the most fertile seed that we could drop, or the most fertile land in which we could drop this seed.
Yvonne, you wanted to add something before and I stopped you, so I'm sorry.
No problem. No, I wanted to add that German girls had some other problems because their English wasn't, how can I say, they didn't understand really English. So they didn't understand the whole time talking. So they also need discipline. They need not the discipline to sing the Jewish, the Yiddish, I'm sorry, the Yiddish songs, but the discipline for all the rehearsals, because they understand, most of them understand nothing.
Can you tell us maybe? Sorry, can you tell us maybe about a moment in the film, during the shooting, that you felt, okay, this project will not come to life, a crisis or a heavy moment?
Yeah, a heavy moment is in the end of the film, and it's in the film also. When the girls were so, the girls from Israel were really not happy about her situation in living outside of Weimar, and they stayed in a little village. You have to say this, and the woman who cares about the girls was really so, she lost all her, Ellen, wie sagt man, sie hat all ihre Fassung verloren. She lost
her presence of mind, her control over herself.
Yeah, So and the girls also lost the control of herself. So and that was a moment when we thought, oh, this will not be a concert tomorrow. And this was the last day before the concert was in Weimar. So and we thought, okay, now everything is crashing, and we will not have a concert. We will not have a film, or maybe a film, yes, but without an end. So this was a complicated moment for all the people who were there.
By the way, as a musician, I can say that these moments where things look like they're going to crash and burn the day before the final concert are often signs that the final concert is going to be amazing. Because everybody pulls together. Nobody wants to be crashing and burning. So everyone says, wow, we're going to have to really dig deep and make sure that every one of us takes responsibility. Nobody can coast along on the ride, on an easy ride. It becomes deep work.
Wolfgang, I wanted to ask you something. The connection between the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the German-Jewish past is very present in many films in the last few years. But this project and the film that you made from this project, it chose a very original way to cope with this subject. And I wanted to ask you about the reactions of audience. Did you have a chance to show the film already to large audiences? And if yes, what were the reactions?
We had the chance to show the film 2 times on one festival in Germany and before COVID. And we didn't know that time what the reaction will be. We had some screenings here at our studio and have a little bit of feeling, but in the big audience, we don't know. And then the film was over and we stayed there before all the audience, and I see it in the face of the audience. There is how can you describe it?
So full of emotions. They cried. Alan, you were also there.
I was there. And 50% of the audience was crying at the end of the film.
But it was a crying with a smiling. And then an old woman stand up.
She said she was 18 years old.
80 years old. And in her life, she gets there's so much hurt her in her life. The war, she lost her parents in the war, I think. And the struggling, and then she came to the movie and think, oh, she looks a nice film about young girls and a little bit music and so on. And then she saw all of that, and then she was she described the feeling that now she is ready to die.
Those were her words.
I don't know how to explain that in English.
No, you did
well. You explained it very well. It is, yes.
She said exactly that. She said, now I feel that I can face death. I'm ready to die now after seeing this, because in a good way, because I don't die in despair, but I would die with hope.
And the whole audience was so impressed. And we also started crying when we heard this.
Because it was a hard time for us too, because in that moment we had an election here in Thuringia.
Yes.
A right-wing party gets so much votes, and it was so hard for us in this moment, and then show this film with this political dimension in it, and yeah, was for all of us a very touching moment. So yeah, and also I think what is part of this is the music. We don't talk about the music, is because we made a film before the other Europeans and something like, and I feel this music what Alan wrote here is when I heard this compositings the first time, and there are so many musical things that touch my heart, and I think this is a dimension which comes to the audience when they watch the film. They they see the lyrics, they read them, but they hear the music, and this connection of all of this and do something with you. Very emotional.
I agree. And I also think it's very interesting to come back to the Yiddish subject, that Yiddish was conceived, and still in Israel is conceived, as a language of the destruction, of death. And now it is becoming, and exactly what you described now, it's becoming a language of hope, of something new, of the future maybe. And I think in the context also of our festival and things that are happening in Germany in few places, it is very important to show moments of hope between people.
Oh, thank you for this kind words.
So I would like to thank you so much for joining us for this interesting conversation. And I wish a lot of luck to the film in those hard times and also for the future projects to come.